All right, good evening, guys. Welcome to episode 34 of the vlog series. And tonight, we will not be doing a deep dive into any books or anything like that. Just maybe wanted to give you guys a quick, life update. Some things that are on the top of my mind in regards to career, income, things along those lines. So I guess the main, and also just, it may not seem related, but also vaccines. So those may, my income and career and the idea of vaccines, these may seem like completely unrelated topics, but if there is a connection in there somewhere, hopefully by the end of this video, it will be clear. So I guess I want to start with that because it leads into the rest of the topic, which is the idea of this vaccine, and I had hoped with every fiber of my being that with the last year and a half of this whole coronavirus thing, that hey, there would be a bit of hysteria, something new, something being kind of hyped up by the media, something kind of scary and unknown. So you can tolerate a bit of hysteria around it, as well as some new and atypical behavior. And by that I mean, hey, and I've done a video about, hey, the loss of civility that we experienced, and kind of along with, just anyone who's lived through this last year and a half, especially in certain cities, not only did we deal with these business shutdowns and et cetera, et cetera. There was this massive movement against police, and this social movement that happened with people in the streets, and it was kind of combined with this massive unemployment because restaurants were shut down and all this. So it was crazy year. And I guess all the while I was kind of holding my judgment, well, not holding my judgment entirely, but to a certain degree, I guess I held in reserve the idea that, hey, things will get back to normal, things will even out, people can't live in this hyped up, heightened state for the rest of their lives, the dust will have to settle sometime, but And I have, so on the one hand, I have just hoped with every fiber of my being that would be the case, that, we would experience this weird time, but things would level out, things would get normal, and it would be a distant memory, and we'd all think back and go, wow, how weird was that? My concern, or a little bit of a concern on the other hand, was that while we might experience moments of relief, we may the end of the tunnel, or the light at the end of the tunnel, may be way further out than I would care to admit. And so, and I may have said on here, but I've definitely thought, like, or when we were in the thick of it, I thought, hey, even when we experienced some relief, like, hey, with shutdowns and mask mandates and limited capacities in restaurants, all these things, as we were getting closer to some relief, which we're in that right now, I believe all, restrictions are lifted. During that time, I thought, hey, we'll experience some momentary relief, but man, when flu season comes back around, I won't be surprised if the clamps come back on. And so, all of that being said, the point that I guess I wanted to get to and to start with, which I guess I tend to be somewhat long-winded because if I'm still in the mode of starting and yet we're 5 minutes in, I guess it takes me sometimes to get to the freaking point. So the main idea here is this idea around vaccines and how I'm seeing this overwhelming pressure, societal pressure, employment pressure for people to get this, to make this medical decision, to get this medical treatment. And people are thinking about it in a very binary way. Hey, if you're a good person, you get the shot. If you're a bad person, you don't get the shot. It's very much the sentiment here in the Northwest, or at least in the greater Seattle area. And I think what's unfortunate about that is, to me, it doesn't seem so simple, doesn't seem so binary, and definitely not self-evident. Any medical decision, there's always two sides to the coin, right? There's even something as simple as Advil or ibuprofen, just these little pain relievers. There's warnings on it that, hey, these are the potential bad reactions, XYZ. When I had a torn labrum and I got surgery. While this was a life-altering surgery, and by that I mean being a person who at times works with their hands, all of my hobbies are very physical hobbies that involve, athletics and strength and mobility and all that stuff. I basically had a compromised shoulder structure that would slip out of its socket every time I used it a certain way, which was very uncomfortable and diminished my ability to participate in some of the things that I enjoy as hobbies, and even limited some capacities that I was able to work in. For example, drilling overhead, or just certain things, painting overhead, even felt weak. So it would seem like a no-brainer that if the technology is available to correct that deficiency in my body, that it's a no-brainer. All right, let's get it scheduled. Well, there is a ton of I'm no physician, so I don't know the technical language, but there's a ton of notices and informational meetings and pamphlets and literature that they put in front of you to go, hey, in every meeting with the surgeon, or at least the one kind of critical one, and many steps along the way, there was this process of, yes, there's a benefit to the surgery, but here's all the potential things, and you have to sign off on it, all the potential things that could go wrong. Hey, infections. Again, I'm no physician, but I remember at the time that they went through in grueling detail about the potential side effects or the potential things that could go wrong and the percentages and all these things. So from something as serious as a shoulder surgery to something as benign as Tylenol, Advil, ibuprofen, there's always two edges to that sword. There's two sides to the coin. There's the potential benefit, the potential relief, the potential cure of that medical treatment, and there's the potential side effects. And so just like anything else, this vaccine, I'm not on here fronting like some kind of medical expert, but I'm just saying as a common sense human being, there are the potential benefits of getting this medical treatment, and then there's potential side effects. And so ideally, every individual would be able to make that decision and that assessment for themselves. And obviously, not all of us are medical experts, so we would want to do it with the guidance of a medical professional. But ultimately, to be able to consent to a medical treatment, you have to understand it, you have to understand the benefits, and you have to understand the potential side effects. And the benefits have to outweigh the side effects. So if you're unsure about what the side effects are, but you don't see a whole lot of benefit in the treatment, then you should be well within your rights and to refuse that medical treatment, right? So, and this all ties into this whole coronavirus hysteria that we're still experiencing, which is that if I'm a young, healthy person and maybe I've already had this illness, or I'm not at risk of any severe symptoms of this illness, then I am not a high risk individual to experience severe symptoms from this illness. So I may not be as concerned to need to protect myself against it, because ultimately, from my limited understanding, not posing like an expert, but it's a treatment to protect myself from severe symptoms, right? So all that being said, that's not the way it's being imposed right now. It's very unfortunate to watch society at large, many people who are a part of any kind of big organization, there's a massive amount of pressure to, if you want to be treated like a normal citizen, treated like everyone else, you need to get this medical treatment, which is totally taking the decision away from the individual. And I've seen some unfortunate consequences of that in, loved ones of my own and friends and family of friends and all these sorts of things, that I just wanted to start off with, again, just pointing out what I think is a very unfortunate dynamic that we're heading into, which is this idea that people are being, and plain and simple, discriminated based on a personal medical decision that they're making. And I would hope that anyone out there could support that, hey, even if I've made a different medical decision, if I've decided to get this shot, if I've decided to not get this shot, that I wouldn't judge someone else for making that medical decision, because you don't know what pre-existing conditions that they've had, or what potential bad reactions they've had to vaccines in the past, or what their allergies are, or what their medical history is, or what their, all of these factors that go into a decision like that. It's not a one size fits all. So I would hope that everyone out there could get on board with this idea that this is a personal decision that you make based on your own situation, and that you shouldn't be penalized one way or the other for the decisions that you're making for your own health. So I would hope we could all get on board with that, but it doesn't seem to be that the world is heading that way, or at least the little bubble of a world that I live in. And so what that is kind of leading me towards is just some of these kind of greater life questions and decisions around how to cope and how to support, my little family unit, again, just me and my lady, through times where, again, potentially we would be discriminated against based on the choices that we make. And so I guess that's just had me thinking a lot again about what possibilities there are in the world to kind of, like earn different income streams, all that sort of thing. So I guess, it just doesn't seem to connect at this very moment to bore you guys with the details of that discussion, because I think I wanted to maybe just get out there this idea that it just seems so crazy that we're in a place where there's such this overwhelming sentiment that, hey, these personal medical decisions are anyone else's business, and that you're a good person or a bad person based on it. And again, to me, what the craziest thing is is when you're considering what illness we're talking about here, right? And I know that the media has hyped it up into this thing. I mean, just to the, especially in the States where it's this discussion of this massive body count. I mean, whatever the raw macro numbers they're throwing out there of, 500, 500,000 people have died from this thing, or, a million, whatever crazy numbers they're throwing around. But if you take a step back, you look at it through a calm and even keeled lens, and I think a lot of clarity comes if you look locally and you look at the data in a detailed way, right? And that was something that I got from different sources. A coworker of ours, she has a family member in the kind of administrative level of the healthcare industry here locally, and he was sending over the raw numbers locally every month, and you would see a very clear breakout between, cases, hospitalizations, and deaths, and the breakout by age and over time. And what you saw was, regardless of what was going on in the news, you saw a very small percentage of people dying from this thing, and it was massively skewed towards the elderly. And so just the more you refine this thing, the more you start to go, okay, this isn't the Black Plague, right? So again, if we were talking about the Black Plague, where, bodies were piling up in the street, and, and that's how people were treating it, which was insane, right? And then, if we were acting like this was something that affected young people in a significant way, and by young I mean under 75, right? Again, if you looked at the numbers, especially locally, this is something that's affecting people who are over and above 75 in a significant way. Everything else very, very insignificant, especially to the tens of thousands of cases and maybe a dozen people that died from this thing. So again, I get there was a hysteria and people were hyped up. I'm also not a medical professional or any of these things, but I just mean to say that I think the sentiment would be more understandable if this truly was, the Black Plague that had came. And I think people treated as such. People felt like they just lived through that, like the Spanish flu or something crazy where, 1 in 3 people are dropping like flies from an illness that's going around. And so they're treating it and they feel about it in that way. So if you're not doing everything you possibly can to protect yourself against it or not be a vector for spreading this thing, then you're an insane person. But let's take a step back, right? This is something that it hit most people and they didn't have any symptoms, or it hit you and you had some mild or even some sort of, hey, you felt really, really sick, but then it moved on, right? So for your normal, average, healthy person, this is just not a concern whatsoever. So, I guess here's the main takeaway, because I'm not sitting here, I'm not trying to pose as if I'm some kind of medical professional, but I think what I'm trying to do with this and to share my perspective on this is just as an average guy, is to share what I hope comes across as a pretty even-keeled perspective on the matter, because I feel like there's so much hysteria in both directions. There's hysteria in the realm of this is the thing that's going to save humanity, and then there's hysteria in the other direction of Bill Gates is trying to mutate my genome, and these mRNA vaccines are going to rearrange my DNA. So I'm not entertaining either of those, and that's what I'm just hoping to spread to people on any end of the spectrum, to just chill out, and do your own research, consult with your own medical professionals and make your own decision. And people should respect that, but then respect other people's decisions. And so I guess I'm just trying to hopefully spread a little bit of an even temper on this whole thing, and an even temper to yeah, anyone who might come across this to in regards to if you're a coworker to people, which most people are, to approach your coworkers in that way. If you're an employer, think about, or a manager that's having rules passed down to you, think about, because we all have a choice. If we're given rules by the state that allegedly we have to follow, we all have a choice in what rules we decide to follow and to what extent we decide to follow them, and with what amount of passion and enthusiasm we decide to follow them. So again, if it comes down and the state says, hey, you have to verify your employees got this, or unless or they have to wear a mask if they don't. So as an employer, I have the choice to either go crumple that up, throw it in the garbage, move on with my life, or to publish or to make it known, hey team, this is the guidance from the state. You're all aware that this is the guidance from the state, There you go, and move on, and don't make a big deal out of it. One of my favorite examples of this was the gun and ammunition store up in Linwood that stayed open through the whole last year and a half. And, they had a sign on the door that said the state government is forcing us to put a sign on our door that says you have to wear a mask when you come in. This is our sign. And it also said, but we cannot ask on whether or not you have a health condition. So if you walk in the store without wearing a mask, we are going to assume you have a health condition. So that's maybe leaning a little bit one way or the other, but there is someone who is very dispassionately following the rules, but is not going to turn into a freaking Nazi and try and jam the state's agenda down your throat. So I've gone on a bit of a rant here, but I think the main point I just want to get across is let's chill out with the hysteria. Let's chill out with the hysteria. It's okay. The circle of life exists. The nature is going to take its course. We're all going to go in one way or another. And as much as we like to think that we have control over that, or we can force, impose our will on others to kind of control the course of nature in some way or another, that's really a futile objective. And I think there would be a lot less anxiety around this whole subject if people just took a freaking chill pill and respected everyone's rights and individual freedom to make a choice for themselves and to not be treated like a second-class citizen if they choose otherwise. So there's my rant. I hope you I hope if you made it this far, I hope you got something out of it. And I think some of these I kind of take on these topics and am focusing on, I think, dang, I did it again. I'm focusing on these kind of downer type subjects, or these things that maybe are kind of a bit negative. And really, that's not the whole story with what's going on with me, because I just had an awesome weekend with my lady. We took a little trip to the Snoqualmie Falls, and we did a date night Friday night, and I'm working on a course, a construction course, and some things for my hobbies. And we did a marriage strategy session yesterday to make sure we were aligned on the same page, which initiated us to schedule a budget meeting next weekend. So I'm feeling good about everything that I got going on. I'm feeling like I can do more. I think I put this in the previous car vlog that, hey, I'm feeling like I got more in the tank. I don't want to be complacent. I don't want to be settling and saying, oh, hey, this is good enough. And so, yeah, there's a lot of good things happening, and that was honestly the kind of the secondary subject I was hoping to get to, was just again, me trying to sort out what this is going to look like with trying to put some jet engine fuel in DMC, which I've got some thoughts there. Trying to put a little more horsepower in my own earning potential and just providing a security net again for me and my little family of two. So all those things are going well, and yeah, continue to put good, interesting new ideas in my head. Just listening to a couple of Jocko podcasts. I turned on a Gary Vee podcast, and the books that I'm reading. So I'm feeling good. I'm not feeling down about any of this, but I just feel like it's worth sharing. Again, also so maybe some people can relate, because I know that a lot of people are out there feeling isolated and alone on this subject, depending on where you're at. If you're like, hey, I'm not so sure about this thing, maybe you're feeling a little isolated from those around you if everyone thinks differently than you. And so just to put this out there in the world to go, hey, not everyone is hysterical about this subject. There's some people who are just, hey, we're just living our lives, operating as normal. And I suggest you do the same. So with that, I hope you're all well. I hope you're all having a good summer, staying productive, staying healthy, staying fit. And I will continue to try and do the same. And with that, I will see you all tomorrow.